So it just so happens that I had a friend that I was working at an airport at the time. I had a friend that worked at a different store from me. He told me, oh, you should check out the gym that's just down in Lyle Bay. It was called Bodies Under Construction at the time. So, I was like, at the time I was still really into boxing, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this jiu-jitsu thing just like one day try, just so I can know what it's all about, and then I can really just kind of, I'll know what to expect, because I think if someone tried to take me down, I could probably know how to still to strike with them, avoid getting taken down maybe and strike. Completely different mindset back in the day. You got to understand this. So anyway, long story short, I just remember the first day I went there and introduced myself. There was, at the time, New Zealand didn't have really much of an MMA or a jiu-jitsu scene. This is back in 2008, 2010 probably. There was no, we didn't have Conor McGregor or Ronda Rousey. I think the biggest stars in the UFC at the time was probably Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell. And New Zealand at the time, there were no UFC stars from New Zealand, like Israel Adesanya, Brad Riddell, and Dan Hooker. They haven't really got into the UFC yet. Of course, I think those guys were kind of training by that time as well. Completely different story. Although Mark Hunt had success in Pride, of course, but I found out that later on. My first day in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So my first day of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there was only 7 of us at a time when I rocked in there. And I was just in it's just a t-shirt and some track pants, I think. And the first thing we did was, the first person I met was the instructor, the professor. His name's called Master Beira. And he was, I guess like most Brazilians, he was he had a big smile on his face. He shook my hand. He was like, very welcoming. And, straight away I felt like, wow, this is a really good, seems like a pretty good atmosphere, because the first time trying anything, you feel quite tense. You're like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by fighters. But really, it's a mix of fighters and hobbyists and, I don't know, just normal people, really. So anyway, we do the roll. We do our warm-ups, break fours. Got taught how to do a break four. And then we started learning the moves. I remember one of the first move I learned was actually, it was a knee bar from the half guard. And I found out later on that you don't get to do those leg locks until like much later on. You shouldn't even be learning that in white belt. But it was different times back then, and I guess everyone kind of learnt the same thing. It just depends how often you turn up to class, and that's how quick you would learn. So at the end of the class, I was sitting at the back. It's a hierarchy system, right? Colored belts all in the front. You got your black, brown, purple, blue, white, and then no color. So I was right at the back, and then Bear looks over towards me, and he's like, tell us what your name is. And I was like, my name is Ray Chan. And then he's like, no, you're not. Your name's not Ray Chan. And I was like, it's not? It's like, no, it's Bruce Lee. Everybody, welcome Bruce Lee. So everyone welcome Bruce Lee. And I apparently I'm still stuck with that name, Bruce Lee, till today. But, I mean, that name, it stuck. And I felt like I was also a part of this community now. This small group of people that wanted to learn martial arts. I don't know, I felt included. And it was something I haven't felt in a long time. Well, I don't think I've ever felt before. I was part of this team, right? And then, so eventually I ended up purchasing my white belt. This is pretty worn out now. This is probably, I think I had this for maybe 2 or 3 years. What can I tell you about the white belt? Well, the white belt is probably the most important belt, and it's probably it's the most interesting belt because I think the white belt, well, someone actually told me this, is how you learn the quickest. 6 months of learning is probably the quickest you'll ever learn in your life in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because there's just so much to learn in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So much positions, submissions, defense. You learn a lot about yourself during this white belt period. But those 6 months is very vital, because those build your fundamentals, and they might stick for the rest of your life. Some of the stuff that I do at white belt, I still do today. And one of the highlights from my white belt period, I don't know if you guys remember your first submission, but I definitely remember my first submission. As soon as I joined the gym, I got my ass kicked every single time I turned out. I got my ass kicked. Like I thought I was never gonna learn. I was never gonna get good at this thing. I was like, I went for 6 or 7 times. Didn't get a submission. I was just getting beaten by like big guys, tiny guys, anyone, like women, like they were just smashing. I was just getting smashed, right? And I was like, man, I don't think I'm really cut out for this. I mean, can I really? I'm paying money to get my ass kicked here. I was like, what if I just paid to just do the techniques and don't roll? But then at the same time, I was like, man, that's not how it works, though, is it? You have to roll, unless you're injured, of course. But there's no excuse not to roll, really. Otherwise, the application of the martial art, it just doesn't work. You know, you have to be able to learn how to use this in a real life situation. Although it's not really real life situation, but definitely under pressure, right? And rolling really allows you to do that. So I remember there was this guy called Jiraiya. He might have been purple belt at the time. He was vicious. And Barrett wasn't there at that day, so Jiraiya was running the class, and there was like a few of us there, and he wanted to do like a little mini tournament, so he split the group into 2, right? And we got paired up to face one person on each team. So I was faced up against a guy that was much more thinner than me. By this time I was probably at 68 kilos, and this guy was probably like 60 or 61 kilos. But he was a kickboxer. He had crazy cardio, you know. And at the time I was pretty scared of these. I was like, anyone that does had fights before, I was like, shit, man, I just work at a bookstore, you know? So anyway, as these fights were happening, one after the other, then it was my turn, and I got caught up against this kickboxer guy. So, you know, you start off on your knees, and I'm not too sure what happened. I'm just going off memory here. I remember he got me in a triangle, and I didn't use any technique. I just had to muscle my way out of it. You know, I just because I thought, oh man, here comes another submission again, right? You know, but somehow I, bit down on my mouth guard and I just muscled out of it. And then I think he swept me somehow, or he overturned me, and I ended up on my back. And then he came up and tried to get side control. His arm was still holding onto my collar, I think. And from there, I was able to, at the time I was quite flexible, so I threw my leg over his head while his arm was still, holding on to my, could be my rash guard actually, but I was able to grab onto his arms, a leg over his head, and then I bridged and I got him an arm bar, and then Jiraiya was like, stop! And, I considered that a submission. And I don't know, I had the biggest euphoric feeling ever. Just knowing like, wow, that actually worked. I can actually do this. And then then everyone got to roll again. like this time everyone was wrong at the same time, and I submitted him with an anaconda choke. And then ever since getting those taste of submissions, I just kept on submitting more and more people, getting tapped out by a lot of people as well. But I think as soon as I had a good feeling like, oh, okay, I can actually do this, this actually works, then, I was like, I can stick with this, let's just do this for 6 more months, because like this stuff seems important, and the people in the club, they seem pretty cool. So I know I had a lot more confidence,